the defense, like, listen, the problem is we've been a little bit spoiled in Green Bay because you've always had really good offensive Hall of Fame quarterbacks, all pro wide receivers, offensive line play, running backs, etc. And so we've always done pretty well in the preseason against our own defense. In fact, I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember a year, maybe my first year in the league where everybody was kicking my backside. But that was maybe the only year where I thought, oh man, these guys, the defense might be as good as the offense. Which probably wasn't the case. But defense, you just have to understand, it's not that defense is easier. It's that you always hear that 11 players have to make the play work on offense and one player can disrupt the game on defense. There's some truth to that. I mean, the continuity on offense, one person make a mistake can ruin a play. The same can really happen. You miss a gap on defense, you can ruin a play as well. But it's just there doesn't need to be that cohesiveness. Plays are literally a little bit simpler. It's on defense, you have a play that you're going to run. You line up versus certain formations. You line up. Your front has a certain lineup. Your linebackers are responsible for gaps. Your safeties have rotations and coverages based on what they see. But after that, you're just kind of playing ball. Whereas on offense, it is a little bit of a dance. It's a little bit of a nuanced dance. You have a couple different options at different positions. Line, for example, you have initial footwork that's going to change slightly depending on where your linebacker is, where your defensive tackle or defensive end is. The running back is going to take the exact same footwork at the beginning of each outside zone, inside zone, mid zone, regardless of what the defense is lined up in. Like, you're always going to take that initial footwork, then you start playing ball. Wide receiver is going to have different ways to exit the line of scrimmage depending on if they're pressed up or if they're open release, what the coverage looks like later on. And so there's a lot of kind of moving after the ball and things that have to happen. But that initial first couple of moments, there's not a lot going on that you don't already know about. And so I don't know if from a player standpoint, just because it sounds like, and we're not privy to a lot of action, I think, as far as the sideline view on the Green Bay Packers yet, but it sounds like the defense is doing quite well. You expect them to do quite well because why? They got 7 or 8 first-round draft picks, and from a talent standpoint, they should be better than our offense, especially when you don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. You have young receivers. You have two first day or second day picks at tight end that are first-year players. Really excited about both those guys, by the way. It just takes time. Timing in the passing game takes time. Timing in the running game takes time. Continuity, learning the amount of the sheer. I mean, if you saw what was in a playbook, if you put playbooks into paper or on what's on this iPad, as far as how many different variations of the same offensive play or scheme are going on and all the different calls. I was just privy to an offense, not the Green Bay Packers. I was just looking through another playbook recently, and the way that they even count the linebackers or they count in the run game who's going to be the Mike, who the offensive line is going to, is completely different. It's intuitive. They count from the sideline in. It's completely different than anything we ever did. And, if all the words start with W, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. If they all start with Y, T, R, you're not grouping them like that. So just from like the center standpoint, if you've got a young center and the amount of stuff that person has to know and do their job against a guy who's probably a better athlete than them. I mean, we always talk about quarterback being the hardest position in sports. And I think to some extent from a mental processing standpoint, that has to be true. But don't ever think that the one-on-one confrontations that you're allowed to, that you're privy to in the National Football League or any other sport, but you're privy to. Here comes Amon. What's up, Amon?
Man, what's up, Mike? How you doing?
Nothing, man. I was just saying, we talk about the defense is probably winning early right now, but when you think about quarterback being the most difficult position in sports, and from a mental processing standpoint, it's hard to argue. Yes. But the one-on-one matchups that the offensive center has to deal with, a tight end, a running back, a wide receiver, any player on offense that has to deal with as far as what you see, how that's going to affect kind of the initial part of the play, right? Mm-hmm. All the different calls and scenarios, the switches, the verbal cues, the audio cues or visual cues, that you can have before the snap. And then having to go against this guy who 9 times out of 10, at least in our case, was a better athlete than we were. That's a very, very tall order. And it takes a while to get that all together. 11 players working on the same thing.
Yeah. It's all about catching up to that pace of everybody. You know, you're been training all off season, either with the group and y'all been doing certain things, but never 100% full contact. You know, it's never to the ground. It's just a quick hand here or there, maybe running and then running wide receivers running routes. They're up pretty much up the whole time. When I mean up, they're not on the ground unless they, really getting.
They're not taking shots. Certainly.
Exactly. Not taking shots or not getting shot at, basically. So now though, once camp starts up, mini camp too, same thing. You're all in t-shirts and a helmet and a hat these days. There's no physicality to it, but there's technique working and understanding that eventually, okay, this is what's going to happen when I go full speed, when I'm making this block, when I'm making this angle of a cut, or I got to make sure my pad level is at a certain level. So if somebody's going to hit me, I could ping pong off of them and they hit me up instead of taking all that brunt of the hit and I'm absorbing all of it. I'm kind of ricocheting off of them so I don't, feel that hit later on in the practice. So that was like a mindset that I had, learning how to fall in and out of contact and making sure that I felt that full effect of like, all right, this is what it's going to feel like come August or July once training camp got there.
So AG, explain to us what the difference is. I guess maybe most importantly, because this is what we care about, because today's like the first day of pads for a lot of teams. You have to go through this 3-day process, and then you put shoulder pads on, then you put full pads on.
Right.
Explain to us what the difference is for players in intensity level or in preparation and thought process when we think about training camp in general on a padded day versus a non-padded day.
The mindset is basically, okay, we're now full tilt. Is live shots going to happen. Live bullets are shooting. Everybody's firing. So you got to be ready for that. And then going down to your basics of your footwork technique for y'all, your position, the O-line, and how y'all set and all that now. Because now it's going to be setting and embracing for impact now. A little bit more impact than it was during minicamp, prior to that. So now you got to brace a little harder and stuff. Me getting the ball, running the ball downhill, then now I've got to be prepared for, coming in same foot, same shoulder to the linebacker doing the same to me, and also wrapping, maybe thudding for today. I know that'll be the pace of today is more of a thud, even though it's pads, but still my mindset, I don't care. When I hear a thud, it's contact to me. That's all that is. It's just another word for contact. It's not maybe full speed, but for me, it's contact. So I'm not going to get caught off guard running up the A gap and then a linebacker fits me up. And then I'm not full tilt, then now my shoulders hurt. It's like, no. You're not going to ever catch me doing that. I'm going to always be actively in the moment, knowing that it is thud. But when I hit you, you're going to feel it when you hit me. But it's all respect. It's all getting ready and being professional. And so if you don't have that mindset on that, then that's where guys get hurt. When guys get frustrated and they start fights because man, why are you going so fast? Or I wasn't ready for that. Man, what you not ready for, man? You knew what it was, a thud. I came in just a tad above thud, but still, what are you mad about? So it's just a lot of those mindsets going in when you have that first day of padded practice. And also the biggest thing for coaches, from a coach's standpoint, is obviously nobody wants to get hurt. Wants to keep everybody healthy. Right. Little stuff would pop up here and there, but nothing dramatic. But just getting ready, get that first day out the way, be like, okay, here we go. Then everybody kind of starts to ease into everything.
Yeah, there's a few things there. I mean, certainly, I think for offensive and defensive linemen, except for we can't cut on the backside, everything else is live for us. I mean, linebackers, everything else was live. I mean, the tackling wasn't live, for you guys, and wide receivers certainly were probably getting butted up more than. They probably the biggest beneficiaries of thud not tackling. Mm-hmm. When you say, it's interesting about when you say when you start talking about injuries, because obviously for players aren't thinking about it. Well, I shouldn't say this now. Back in the day in Green Bay, players were worried about not being like worn out for the next preseason game, whenever they actually had to perform on camera.
Yeah.
That's what guys are kind of thinking about. They're like, all right, when am I going to have to perform on camera? Now we're trying to get better during the training camps and we're trying to do all that. But guys are really kind of have that in the back of their mind. In Green Bay, we're lucky. The weather's not that bad. We practice extremely hard. We have a very professional group. Guys kind of knew how to practice at a very high level without a lot of extra stuff. So we could go really, really hard. But, it's like if I knocked you to the ground, I'm not going to jump on you as well. Whereas you see some of these guys, even nowadays, there's always a little bit of tough guy to you that we didn't think we needed. We could save that for the other team.
Yeah.
But when I got to I remember we got to Carolina, and I was used to practicing how we practiced in Green Bay. And I got to Carolina, and they've got top defense, top box 7 in the league at the time. Correct. I remember some of the guys were like, "Bro, you don't understand. If you keep practicing like this, we're not going to make it through training camp because they don't mess around down here. They don't care about your health. They don't care about your well-being. They've got a 2.5-hour full padded practice twice a day, and that's what we're doing. And it's 100% humidity, 95 degrees outside in South Carolina."
Yeah.
And they just, Foxy, he was going to do it, and that's what was going to be done. And so I think around the league, it probably feels different for different people. But the thing that I took away, especially early, was like padded practices were literally just a couple more bruises on your body. You didn't really change that much, at least for us, from listen, your footwork's always got to be right. You're going to look bad. Your hands are always going to be right. Yep. You're going to look bad. You just got to know, and we're always striking with our helmet in our hands anyways, right? So except for maybe up on the linebackers, that probably got more physical. I probably felt that a little more because we pulled so much. Mm-hmm. But the interior play, it's always especially if you're going against, I remember Corey Williams, Santana, Gilbert, obviously guys like that. I mean, we had such good guys, Billy Lyon, badass Billy Lyon. We had guys that always wanted to go out there and show and play hard, especially against our offensive line and our team that was it was pretty formidable at that time. Guys always wanted to go out there and perform well. So you always expected to win. I guess the biggest takeaway was like, you expect to win. And if you don't win, it's like, shit, what are we going to do now? You got to go back the next day and do even better.
Yeah, we got to figure it out, basically, and make those adjustments going into the next practice, basically. And the next practice was for us, it was a 2-a-day practice, so it was only a couple hours later, or it was get your 8 hours of sleep, and then now you got the next practice, then make all your adjustments and then be ready for that and see how your body feel that next morning, stuff like that.
I think the hardest part now is, like, for me, the part that I love football, but I would have a hard time just standing this, is when, we got all this, the reporters now, and they're literally on the sidelines, and it's like Amon slipped on an outside zone play. What does that mean? Or like somebody gets, like somebody they see kind of a player come free and they have no idea why it happened, but it's like player X came free, must have beat the right guard. You're like, well, he wasn't even over. It's just it's so bad. But if it would be hard to not let it get to you, because it's like these guys, they all read, they're all on Twitter, they all know all the personalities on ESPN and NFL Network, and when they're hearing this stuff sometimes, especially from the sideline guys who are just giving their like professional review on the play-by-play, that's like, I see it sometimes on Twitter. I'm like, man, just let it go. Like nobody can be that interested. These reps mean, for the context of the fan, the reps mean so little compared to what you're going to see on game day.
100%. And for those sideline reporters, they're just getting something so their editor doesn't snap at them when they get back.
I'm not mad at them. It's part of the job.
Yeah, it's part of their job. Like I said, they're just trying to get some material down. It might jog their memory or something, or their writing ability.
Tucker Kraft got beat up a couple days ago. I think he walked off with some ice on his thigh or something. But Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, I mean, these two tight ends, they have played a significant amount of time on the field together. Now, Luke Musgrave is going to be the starting tight end. That's what it looks like. But they're on the field together in two tight end sets. They've been featured a couple times here in this preseason, enough for people to start thinking about, all right, man, what does this mean? And we've kind of already talked about what it means.
100%.
Excuse me, for our offense. But let's talk about what this means for our defense and our defensive development, particularly at a safety position. At a safety position, and maybe with Quay Walker included in that, that is in dire need of some development with Adrian Amos gone.
100%. It's having the ability, or having the tight end with the abilities these young guys have, for Darnell, for the other safeties back there. It's going to give them so much experience dealing with a big guy that can move between running routes and between getting blocked by him. Because then they could, if they don't take it personal, where we know players will go and say, hey, you know what, just learn from this part. You got dominated, okay? Now go to that tight end and be like, hey, what? How did you get me there? What's your thought process blocking me as a safety smaller than you? And regardless, you're going to, you got the advantage, but what is your still mindset? Use that. And so that's where it's going to be beneficial. And then also route running, because with those two big tight ends, obviously it's not a speed factor, it's a size factor covering them, because then they could body that smaller safety up. It's like getting in the paint in basketball. You got a small guy on me, throw me the high ball. So they can learn how to defend that a lot better, practicing with those young guys and say, hey, I want that. If I'm any of those safeties, especially if I'm Savage, I'm like, I'm going to the coach, tight ends coach. Give me something every day from these two. I want something every day, because this is the NFL now. We got tight ends that are this size, this aggression. The technique is there. The dynamic ability is there. So I'm going to face this when we play the 49ers. I'm going to face this when we play the Seahawks. I'm going to face this when we play the Broncos. Whoever we play, there is a tight end that's 6'6", that runs 4'6", 4'7", and then can run block. So give me all of that, because it's going to make me better at the end of the day. That's the mindset that they need to be thinking about. And that's how and then if they don't have that mindset, they're going to get bludgeoned with it, because this is going to be something. This is now a staple of this offense for Matt LaFleur, making a point to draft these two guys high for their draft picks in 2023.
Yeah, let's hope that's the case. And, certainly we've seen all kinds of, Tony Gonzalez, Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts for Atlanta, who's just a phenomenal football player. I don't know if I call him a tight end.
Yeah, he's more on the pass side of it.
But we are, and even, Dalton Kincaid, the first pick, this year, the first tight end off the board this year, he's more a receiving guy. But
Penn State, right?
There are guys, I don't recall it, EG, but there are guys, you think about the San Francisco 49ers in particular. There are teams that are beginning, Mark Andrews in the Baltimore Ravens. There are teams who have these two-way go players. We're hoping that Luke and Tucker can both be two-way go players. We're hoping that they can add that. It's just like the pendulum swings so far one way. All the passing rules come in. We start getting 4 wide receiver looks. Mm-hmm. And now defenses have smaller line. Like, it's like linebacker, what happened? Safeties got smaller. Linebackers got smaller. Everybody got smaller. So now it's like, oh, what can we do? Oh, we can run the ball again. We can make them bring 3 linebackers into the game with playing 2 tight ends that can stretch the defense. Like the chess game on a kind of a global level is changing back to maybe closer to what we're used to as a consequence of the physical size and stature of some of these defenders has changed, and therefore we need to change with the times.